All right, guys, you ready to go for another ride? Today, I want to talk about fear on the highway. It's a big topic. A lot of people are talking about it, especially a lot of new riders. And we're going to jump on this motorcycle and, well, we'll go kind of slow this time. We'll probably won't have too much fear driving this time, but let me tell you, I slipped right on the gravel. So let me fire this bad boy up. We put her in neutral. Alright, so what I want to show you today, right now I'm in Pine, Colorado, over here at the Moore Lumber and Hardware. What I want to do is I'm going to go through Pine going south. So this is a real, I'd say probably one of the most scenic routes that you can do on a motorcycle pretty much anywhere in Colorado. It's pretty amazing. And this will go for 2 hours all the way down to Colorado Springs. And one of the reasons I actually kind of discovered this route is that I quickly discovered that I have a lot of fear on the highway when it comes to riding motorcycles. And let me tell you, I get to, I'd say maybe about 50, 55 is kind of the maximum comfort zone as far as driving this motorcycle. And it seems like anything above that, when I get on the highway, I do have a lot of anxiety. As a matter of fact, when I first started, I had an incredible amount of anxiety. We're like, I just got to get off this road. This is insane, which is kind of crazy, especially when the wind's blowing. It seems like the wind freaks me out more than anything. You can see the wind's really gusting right now, which adds to it. So kind of the weird thing is I kind of struggled with this fear and anxiety over the highway speeds on my motorcycle. And it wasn't until I actually went on this motorcycle ride just a few weeks ago. Whoa, that guy came really close, almost ran over my foot. That would not have been good. I had my foot sticking out there. Whew. That kind of freaked me out. I could watch what's going on behind me. Speaking of fear, that could have been pretty bad. But anyway, I went on this motorcycle ride with about 200 bikers down in. Check out this road. This one's pretty cool. This is a pretty awesome road. Really super curvy. Speed limit 35, so it's a really kind of a slow road. But anyway, I went on this motorcycle ride with about 200 bikers. And one of the guys was one of my friends that came down from up north, up in Montana. He drove 12 hours down to come to this ride, and we rode together. We started talking, and he starts talking about fear on the highway. And I was thinking, man, I thought I was the only one that had a lot of fear and anxiety going highway speeds. And he was saying that he's been riding for, pretty consistently for a lot longer than me. I pretty much took like a 20-year break, and I just got back on my bike about 2 months ago, so it's all pretty new again to me. And he was saying that it took him a whole year before he felt comfortable driving 75 miles an hour on the highway, which I thought was pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, I was talking to another guy that met me there. I actually knew him. Sold some ball pythons to him. His name's Larry, and I actually hooked up with him. He has a 3-wheeler, and he says when he goes on the highway he never goes over 65, which I thought was interesting too. So it seems like you think you can't have this fear of driving fast on the highway. And let me tell you, you are not the only one. It seems like there's a lot of people that really have that fear, and it takes them a long time to really get comfortable on the highway at highway speeds. And when I had a motorcycle like 20 plus years ago, I actually had a Harley Davidson Sportster. It was a 1979, really old Sportster. Back then it wasn't that old, which is pretty wild. That was back from the AMF days when I don't know, everyone said they leaked oil really bad, those old AMF Harleys, but this one it didn't leak oil. I don't remember it leaking oil anywhere, which is pretty interesting. And when I bought the motorcycle, it was a complete basket case. It wasn't even hardly running, and I took it all apart down to the frame. I had some guy look at the transmission. Some guy said, the guy that was working on the transmission, he said someone actually pulled the whole thing apart and put it back together wrong. So he put it back together the correct way. I guess some of the things were like put together backward, and then got it all together. And I remember driving that for a long time, never had any fear. But the weird thing about that is I was driving in a big town of like 100,000 people, and the town was almost completely isolated from all the other towns. So in order to get to the next big town, you had to go on I-25, the big highway that's 75 miles an hour. But I never went out of town. I went on the highway a couple times, and I could definitely feel that fear factor. And let me tell you, I was like, all right, I'm never going to go on the highway. I think I maybe felt it once or twice going on the highway and decided I was never going to ride on the highway. So, you know, kind of thinking back in my old days when I was riding my motorcycle back then, I don't really have any memories of the fear factor that really can grip you when you're on the highway. And up here in the mountains, the weird thing is you know, I'm like in the middle of nowhere. In order to get anywhere, you know, so I actually drove on the highway just to get to my starting point. You know, I was going like 65 miles an hour, even though the speed limit's 55, everyone's going 65, it seems like. So they almost kind of like push you to go faster than you're comfortable on a motorcycle. And let me tell you, I'm still trying to get used to the fear factor of driving on the highway. As a matter of fact, some people could be really anxious around these corners, because let me tell you, if you fall off that cliff right there, you gotta be really careful. You gotta really pay attention of what you're doing up here on this road too. I remember when I first started driving my motorcycle, I was kind of scoping out these roads because I wanted to get to Pueblo, but I wanted to avoid the highway. So the first thing I did is I took my car down this road, and I saw all these curves, and I was like, no way, I'm not good enough for these curves on my motorcycle. And then I took my bike on the highway going 75, and I was like, all right, it's like the lesser of two evils. What do I want to do? Do I want to face the curves, or do I want to face the high speed? And I chose the curves, going around these curves. And let me tell you, after you hit so many curves, you know, doing this, I actually took this road 2 hours one way and 2 hours the back, coming down this road with all these curves. Let me tell you, you become an expert at the curves. And I think it's a lot easier to do the curves than it is to do high speed on the highway, especially if you're starting out. But I've actually seen some of these guys say that some of the big cruisers, like, you know, the big Harley CVOs and like the Goldwings and like that, it seems like they're a lot more stable at highway speeds. And then you don't really have, I don't know if you'd have that fear factor still though, but if you have a bigger bike that's more planted, that's a little bit more solid as far as going down the road, I wouldn't think you'd have as much fear factor. But the thing is, like with this is a Harley Davidson Dyna from 2007, and the suspension, let me tell you, is pretty stiff on these bikes. So you can feel, let me tell you, you can feel a lot more vibration like in the front end and the whole bike than if you actually compared this to like my Porsche, which is like riding a couch down the highway. And you can take, you know, incredible speeds and incredible corners with that Porsche, and it doesn't really affect your ability to handle that Porsche. No fear factor at all. Versus on a bike like this, yeah. So even here, I can definitely feel, you know, the roughness in the road. That, let me tell you, if you're not used to riding a motorcycle, sometimes they can be a little bit unnerving. The other thing that I think brings in a lot of fear factor with the motorcycle is you're not familiar with the motorcycle, and you don't trust it 100%. That was like the biggest thing. It's like when I'm going around this corner, I'm always thinking, all right, are my tires gonna hold? that's the big thing, is there enough traction to hold my tires? And you get going around these corners faster and faster, and it's always kind of like in the back of your mind, am I gonna hit some gravel? Is this gonna give out? And I think that's another thing as far as the fear factor, especially on corners like this. That's kind of the one thing. And then the other thing, of course, when you're first starting out, I'd say probably one of the biggest things is just learning the skills of the motorcycle. That's the big thing. I remember when I first took this out of my driveway, I went around my very first corner, and I felt like I didn't even know if I was gonna fly off the road around a corner or not, because I just didn't have the skill to manage the corner. I didn't have the ability to negotiate the corner, and that's one thing. When I first started out, I had a lot of fear just in any corner, just, you know, driving the thing, because it's like a 700-pound bike that is really big and heavy. And I don't know if you've ever ridden one of these Dynas, but it seems like it's really top heavy. So I would say, I don't know, it seems like a top heavy bike is kind of a double-edged sword. Because if you're going at really low speeds, it feels like it's just going to fall over because it's top heavy. But if you're going around a corner, it seems like the weight on the top kind of helps you negotiate the corners better than if you had a bike that wasn't as top heavy. So it kind of leans more into the corner as you're going around the corner. And that's, I don't know, I've never really driven any other bike besides this Dyna lately, which is another thing I want to do. I actually want to go through, like, to a dealer and try out all their different bikes and see how they all handle, and see if, you know, the fear factor is only associated with certain bikes. But it's kind of interesting. I actually watch a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of people say, you know, I have this motorcycle, and they're talking about their bike, and they're like, yeah, there's something wrong with my bike, that every time I go over 50, it just doesn't feel stable, and I don't feel secure driving on the highway. And let me tell you, that is completely normal as far as what I'm seeing with most motorcycles. You just have to know your motorcycle and be familiar with kind of being bounced around on the highway and the wind blowing you around. And when I got this bike, I thought there was something wrong with it too. I was like, man, this just seems really unstable on the highway. Everyone, you know, I'm riding with 200 bikers, and they're all doing a lot better than me, it seemed. And I'm pretty sure what it came down to was those bikers just had more experience behind the wheel than I did on my bike. You just need the experience. You need to feel the road vibrations. And that's one of the reasons I actually got this windshield. And let me tell you, the windshield really cuts down a lot of the anxiety that I have on the kind of on the highway, because it blocks a lot of the wind. So this is like, I don't know what town this is. This is like a little tiny town down here. Rhubarb Festival. Oh, this is Pine Grove. The Pine Grove Rhubarb Festival. It's kind of an interesting little place. There's the library. That thing looks like it needs a paint job there. Oh my goodness, some of these little towns are so cute. So I'm not sure how far I'm going to go down in this one. I just kind of wanted to show you the town and kind of this road. This is a really cool road, kind of cruising through the mountains here. There's actually another road that I discovered. You can actually go from my house to Denver if you actually drive down the main highway just a little bit more, and then there's a side road that kind of goes through the, kind of squeezes through the mountains, which is one of the most absolutely spectacular roads that I've ever been on, even more scenic than this one. And when I went down that road, it was like all full of bicycles and motorcycles, and people pulled over taking pictures, and like the red rock formations up on the cliffs on the side of the, right along the side of the road and everything. So I'm thinking maybe I'll do that one next. That was a beautiful ride. Of course, I'm not sure how long I'd have to drive to get to that really scenic place down there. I think that was all the way down close to Denver, maybe about an hour from my house or something like that. But look at how beautiful this is. Yeah, so I actually have cows, and boy, what would I would give for a field like that for my cows, so I wouldn't have to feed them hay all the time. Of course, if you have a field like that, you'd probably make more money baling up the hay and selling the hay than you would actually doing the cows. But man, it is so beautiful down here. So yeah, so when it comes to the fear factor on motorcycles, so one approach that I took, I was actually doing the 65 mile an hour. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna drive for 65 mile an hour for 2 hours straight and see if I can overcome the fear factor of this 65 mile an hour drive. And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go about trying to overcome your fears. What I would actually do instead, what I would do is I would drive like 40 or 45 or maybe even 50. Like I'd say 50 is kind of like my comfortable speed where I'm really super comfortable, and then drive that every single day. And what you'll actually find at 50 miles an hour, some days will be really windy to where it'll seem like you're going 70 or 80, you know, and sometimes it'll be like cold and rainy and snowy. Well, one of the conditions I don't really drive in is the snow. If there's snow or ice on the road, I definitely don't drive my motorcycle if there's anything slick on the road. But other than that, I've been driving every single day in pretty much any weather condition, unless it's really raining super hard. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite times to ride is when there's spotty rain all over, and you're kind of out there kind of playing chicken with the rain clouds, see if you can get seeing if you can get lucky trying to miss all the rain clouds. That is kind of the best time, because you can smell all the kind of the fresh smells of a fresh rain. It smells really good and it's nice and cool. And I don't know, there's something about, you know, I got caught in rain once, and for some reason I just absolutely love riding in the rain, even better than, you know, riding in like a clear weather like this. I would rather take rain, unless it's like raining really hard where you're like hydroplaning or something like that, which would be kind of terrifying. Speaking of terrified, let me share one more thing with you. I'm going to turn around here pretty soon. I wanted to share one more story with you, and that is probably my most terrifying experience when I was driving this motorcycle in the last 2 months. And I can't even believe it's only been 2 months on this bike. Seems like it's been a lot longer than that. But I actually brought this bike in. For some reason it felt unstable on the highway, so I thought, all right, I'm gonna bring it into the shop and I'm gonna have them look at the front end. And one of the things I wanted them to do was the front fork seals, because they were leaking a little bit, and then I wanted them to check the steering head on top of the steering column to make sure everything was tight in there, so you know it wouldn't come apart. Well, it was more of a kind of a peace of mind thing, so I knew for sure that the steering was a-okay for my 9-hour trip. And one of the things they said is that the fender on the front tire was unsafe. So they gave me back my motorcycle, said the fender was unsafe, and it was the day before my trip. So on this 9-hour trip, I had no windshield, I had no front fender, and I hit some rain. And I don't know if you've ever driven in rain with no windshield and no front fender, but essentially what happens is all the mud and water on the road come up and hit you right smack straight in the helmet. And it was like every 15 seconds I was taking my glove and wiping the mud off of my visor, going 50 miles an hour in this rainstorm. I couldn't see anything. If a deer would have jumped out in front of me, I probably would have hit it. It was absolutely terrifying. That was the scariest thing. And the weird thing is when you go through situations like that where you're really terrified at slow speeds, you know, say for example, you're used to driving 50, you're really comfortable with 50, and then all of a sudden you hit something that's really terrifying at 50, and then you get back on a nice day like this and you're going 50, let me tell you, it seems so much easier compared to what you just went through with the rain and the mud and the helmet and everything. So now when I'm going 50, I'm like, this is easy because I don't have mud being flown in my face on my visor to where I can't see anything. So, you know, now I'm at a point where, you know, going down the highway at 55, that's kind of the weird thing is is if you're going 50 miles an hour and then you increase to 60, it seems like the wind is twice as strong at 60 miles an hour. And then when from 60 to 70, it almost seems like the wind is twice as strong again, just that going that 10 miles an hour. So the difference between 50 and 60 is huge, and the difference between 50 and 75 is life-changing. Let me tell you, that is an incredibly a huge amount of fear that you add to your drive going from one to the other. So I would say drive just at the edge of your comfort zone as much as you possibly can. So like right out here, it opens up to 50. So I think I was in a 50, I wasn't sure, I kind of missed the sign. So this is like right at the edge of my comfort zone right here, and the wind's kind of whipping me around a little bit. Hey, it's a little trike. What's up? Alright, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to find a place to turn around. The funny thing is, if you keep going up on this road, it gets really super curvy. I mean, so curvy that you almost have to drop down in first gear and drive like 10 miles an hour around the corners because it's so super curvy. And there's all these signs that say, motorcycles use extreme caution, with the flashing lights and everything, which is kind of crazy. Alright, so I'm going to try to find a place to turn around up here. I don't know if you noticed up here, but we are in an old burn area where a fire actually ravaged this place, burned all the trees, and now it's slowly growing back. So this is like complete devastation. And this happened maybe, I think this has been like 8 years, and there's still no trees that have grown back, which is kind of crazy. Alright, so I'm getting way out further than I wanted to get. So I'm going to go ahead and turn around up here somewhere. Maybe right here. I don't want to go too far. And the other thing about these vlogs, I quickly found out that if the file size is too big, I have to really reduce the quality of the video to get it to post on YouTube, because it takes me, my last vlog I think was 1.5 gigabytes. It took me 9 hours to upload 1.5 gigs on my really slow internet connection. So I think I'm gonna cut it here because I don't want to be spending days trying to upload this video. So that's pretty much it, guys. Looks like the maximum speed that I went today is 64, and that is definitely enough fear factor for me. So take care, guys. Work on that fear factor, slowly get some experience under your belt, and I will see you in the next video.